Many people assume that loneliness only exists in silence, in empty rooms, in quiet evenings with no messages on their phone. But for many, loneliness lives somewhere far more confusing. It lives in crowded spaces, in group chats that never stop buzzing, in family dinners filled with conversation, in workplaces full of familiar faces. It lives in laughter that doesn't quite reach the heart, in conversations that never quite touch anything real. It lives in the strange, aching feeling of being emotionally invisible while physically present. If you have ever sat in a room full of people and still felt alone, you are not strange. You are not broken. And you are not imagining it. What you are experiencing has deep psychological roots, and it says far more about your emotional history than about your worth. Loneliness is often misunderstood as the absence of people. In reality, it is the absence of emotional connection. It is not about how many friends you have. It is about whether you feel seen, understood, and emotionally safe with the people around you. A person can have dozens of acquaintances and still feel deeply isolated. Another person may have only one or two close connections and feel deeply fulfilled. The difference is not quantity, it is depth. For many people who feel lonely in social environments, this pattern begins early in life. Often, it starts in childhood, in subtle ways that are easy to overlook. Perhaps emotions were not openly discussed in your home. Maybe your struggles were minimized. Maybe you learned early that being easy and low maintenance was safer than expressing needs. Maybe you were praised for being independent, quiet, or strong, even when you were hurting inside. Over time, these experiences teach a powerful lesson. Connection must be earned by being agreeable, by not taking up too much emotional space, by not burdening others with your inner world. So you learn to adapt. You learn to smile when you are tired. You learn to say, "I'm fine," when you are not. You learn to listen more than you speak. You learn to be present without being vulnerable. From the outside, you appear social. You are polite. You are friendly. You show up. You participate. People may even describe you as warm, kind, or easy to talk to. But inside, there is a quiet distance between who you are and what you share. You let others see your surface, but not your depth. And over time, that emotional distance becomes loneliness. Another common root of this experience lies in emotional attunement. Some people grow up feeling emotionally misunderstood. Their feelings may have been dismissed, misinterpreted, or ignored. When this happens repeatedly, the brain learns that emotional expression is risky. It begins to associate vulnerability with disappointment. So, as an adult, even when surrounded by people, you may unconsciously hold back. You may feel like no one would truly understand you anyway. So why try? This leads to a pattern of emotional self-protection. You may crave closeness deeply, yet fear it at the same time. You want connection, but you also fear being judged, rejected, or misunderstood. So you remain emotionally guarded. You keep conversations safe. You avoid topics that feel too personal. You present the version of yourself that feels most acceptable. Psychologically, this creates an internal conflict. One part of you longs to be known. Another part of you is afraid to be seen. And when those parts are constantly in tension, loneliness becomes the background noise of your life. Many people who experience this type of loneliness are also highly sensitive to social cues. They notice subtle shifts in tone, facial expressions, and energy. They may overanalyze interactions, wondering if they said the wrong thing, if they were too much, or not enough. This hyper-awareness often develops in environments where emotional safety was inconsistent. When love or approval felt conditional, the brain learned to monitor constantly. As an adult, this can make social situations exhausting. You may be present physically, but mentally, you are scanning for signs of rejection. You are managing impressions. You are trying to be right. This mental effort leaves little room for genuine connection. And afterward, you may feel drained, empty, and strangely lonely, even after spending time with others. Another layer of this experience involves identity. Some people learn early to shape themselves around others' expectations. They become who they think they should be, rather than who they truly are. They become adaptable, flexible, and agreeable. While this can make them socially successful, it often comes at a cost. When you constantly adjust yourself to fit in, you begin to lose touch with your authentic self. You may not even know what you truly think, want, or feel anymore. Conversations become performances. Relationships become roles. And when no one is interacting with your real self, loneliness is inevitable. There is also a deep emotional component connected to unmet attachment needs. Humans are wired for secure attachment. We need relationships where we feel emotionally safe, valued, and supported. When these needs are inconsistently met in early life, people often develop anxious or avoidant patterns. Some become anxious, constantly seeking reassurance but never feeling fully secure. Others become avoidant, appearing independent but struggling to let anyone get close. Both patterns can lead to feeling lonely in relationships because true emotional intimacy feels unsafe. You might be in a relationship, have friends, have colleagues, and still feel unseen. You might share experiences, jokes, and routines, but rarely share fears, doubts, or dreams. Without emotional intimacy, connection remains shallow, and shallow connection cannot satisfy deep emotional needs. Loneliness in social settings also affects mental health. It often leads to self-doubt. You may wonder why you feel disconnected when others seem fine. You may blame yourself. You may think you are too sensitive, too complicated, or too different. Over time, this can feed anxiety and low self-esteem. It can also lead to emotional numbness. When connection feels consistently out of reach, the mind sometimes protects itself by lowering expectations. You may stop hoping for deep bonds. You may convince yourself you don't need anyone. You may become emotionally distant, not because you don't care, but because caring hurts. Yet beneath this emotional armor, the need for connection never disappears. It simply goes underground. It shows up as longing, as emptiness, as the feeling that something is missing, even when life looks full on the outside. The most important thing to understand is that this pattern is not a personal failure. It is an adaptation. It developed to protect you. At some point, being emotionally reserved, self-reliant, or accommodating helped you survive. It helped you belong. It helped you avoid pain. But what once protected you may now be keeping you isolated. Healing begins with awareness, not self-judgment, not forcing yourself to be different, but gentle curiosity. Begin noticing when you hold back, when you minimize your feelings. When you choose safety over honesty, ask yourself what you are afraid would happen if you were more open. Often, the fear is rooted in old experiences, not current reality. Your adult relationships may be safer than you realize. Your emotional needs may be more welcome than you expect. Learning to tolerate vulnerability is a gradual process. It starts small, sharing one honest feeling, expressing one need, allowing one person to see you more fully. Each time you do this and survive, your nervous system learns that connection does not always lead to pain. It is also important to build a relationship with yourself. Many people who feel lonely in groups are disconnected from their own inner world. They have spent so long adapting to others that they have neglected themselves. Reconnecting with your values, emotions, and desires strengthens your sense of identity. And a strong identity makes authentic connection easier. You are allowed to take up emotional space. You are allowed to have needs. You are allowed to be complex. You do not have to earn connection by shrinking yourself. True belonging happens when you let yourself be seen, imperfect, and human. Not by everyone, not all at once, but by those who are capable of meeting you with care. Loneliness, among others, is not a life sentence. It is a message. It is your inner world asking for deeper connection, starting with yourself. It is an invitation to move from performing to being, from hiding to revealing, from surviving to truly living. You are not alone in feeling alone. Many carry this quiet ache behind smiles and small talk. But healing is possible. Connection is possible. And you deserve relationships where you feel emotionally at home. Little by little, by choosing honesty over fear, compassion over self-criticism, and presence over perfection, you can learn to feel connected again. Not because you changed who you are, but because you finally allowed yourself to be who you've always been.